Do you struggle with Portuguese pronunciation? Have you been learning for some time or you just started recently and you realize that European Portuguese has some particular sounds that are difficult to distinguish and even more tricky to pronounce? For example, nasal sounds. Olá, I'm Sara. I'm Portuguese from Lisbon and I'm a Portuguese learning experience designer. And today I'm going to show you my technique that I use to help my students to be able to pronounce those difficult sounds. It's not a strategic technique, it's not something very usual, it's quite different, but it works and it has been helping my students to pronounce those sounds. So, what is the thing that I'm going to tell you today? It's something that you can use to practice any sound that you feel that is difficult. I'm going to use as an example the sounds that are more tricky for most people learning European Portuguese, but you can apply to any sound. There are sounds that are more tricky for English native speakers than others, so doesn't matter your language. For example, some people, some foreigners, they can't pronounce nasal sounds. It's just okay. Those sounds are not the issue, but maybe other sounds are the issue. But regardless, the sound that is tricky to you, you can apply this method. So, first things first. When we speak, we are producing sounds, just sounds. A sound, for example, like this. This is a sound. Sounds like this. This is also a sound. Actually, some languages in Africa, they are based, or they have a lot of these sounds, these clicks. When a dog barks, that's a sound. And we can also make certain kind of sounds like All those sounds, when we do them, we are using different parts of our body, this part of our body. When we speak, we use this, right? Our lips, all our muscles, and our throat. A lot of things going on here, right? The languages that you speak fluently, you learn them, being a native speaker or not, and you are used to move all of this that you have here in a certain way to produce those sounds for these languages. But what's the issue when you learn a foreign language? Most of the times, you'll find sounds that are completely new to you. So, different language, different sounds, different ways to move your muscles. That's, for example, the case of ão, ein, in, on, all the nasal sounds. So we have the sounds and we have the letters. And we use the sounds to say the letters, right? But we have a basic sound, let's say a basic sound, behind each letter. So for example, when you talk about the nasal sounds, we use vowels. So nasal sounds are vowels. The easy version are the open sounds. No nasal sounds like a, e, I, o, u. So the sound comes from here. A, I, o, u. And you can touch your throat here. I, o, u. It's an open sound. We have the same vowels, but they're a nasal version. So what's the nasal sound? It's this one. So now pay close attention. I told you that it's not conventional, it's not usual, but this is the base concept in this technique. Is you pronounce, you say this sound. It's not the letter, it's not a letter, it's not a syllable, it's not a word. It's just the sound itself. Can you do this? I've noticed that people with some kind of like handicaps, and for example autist people, at least the way they are portrayed in movies, they tend to do this kind of sounds when they try to communicate. So when you listen to any sound, for example this one, what does it sound like? If you are familiar with, for example, autist people, and you can tell, oh, this is the kind of sound that they do. And this is something that you can always do. You see something new, learn something new, hear some or listen something new, and you connect that to something that you already know. So this is what I mean when I say that, oh, usually people that are autists and they struggle with speaking, sometimes, and not to speaking, communication. Some of them, when they try to verbalize the language, they do something like So if you are familiar with this context, probably it's easier for you to understand the sound. It's always a matter of, have you ever heard the sound? So if the sound is completely new to you, it will be more complicated for you to understand it and produce it. So try to do it like this. And while you do it, try to understand, where do you feel? For example, when you do this with your hand, the muscles of your hand, you have a feeling, right? If you do like, you feel it on your lips. And when you do where do you feel it? Probably something in the place behind your nose, in the place behind your nose, inside your head. Okay, so when you do this many times to practice, you start realizing where the sound is produced, where we do the sound is in this place inside our head, behind our nose. That's why the nasal sound, it's nasal because it's nasal, of course, nariz, nose. But if I do this like this, if I speak that like this, it gets even more nasal. Of course, for me as a native speaker, Portuguese native speaker, I don't need to literally close my nose to produce nasal sounds, because what happens is the sound is not produced exactly here in this part of my nose. It's behind it, atrás, behind it. So let's try again. And there are different variations. You open your mouth, you don't, like So this is the nasal sound. You may find it a little bit weird, but stay with me, it works. Because now, to this sound, you are going to attach the vowels. Which vowels? A, E, I, O, U. Okay? So, or you will attach the A. So, And I suggest you not just to watch this video and practice along while I'm doing it, but to practice regularly, because it's not just a matter of, oh, I did it once and I already know how to do it. If that's the case, amazing. But for most people, you need to practice more than once. So, okay, do it with me. The strongest version is The one that we actually use in daily life is softer. It's an A, but nasal. Open sound, A. Nasal sound, okay? The way I'm telling you to do this, strong, like is not only for you to understand where we should pronounce the sound, inside our head, behind our nose, but also for you to exercise your muscle. Because here, all this that you used to speak, you're not used to use your muscles to speak Portuguese. And that's why a new sound that you need to move your muscles, your body in a different way, is more complicated. And if you are familiar with physical exercise, gymnastics, going to the gym, you know that in order to perform a certain movement, a certain exercise, you need to do very often, many times. So it's not only to perform, it's to practice and be good at it in a way that you will mimic the native speakers. Why it's so easy for me as a native speaker, Portuguese native speaker, to produce these nasal sounds? Because I've been doing it since I was a kid. Since I was a baby, I started to listen to people, Portuguese people, pronouncing the sounds, and it comes so natural to me. My muscles, my body, it's trained, is used to speak this way and pronounce these specific sounds. Okay? So the same way you can do these exercises. So for example, the A, the nasal A, you do and you need to do this exercise regularly, because you're not used to it. You need to train until it gets normal and familiar. It's not just a matter of hearing the sound and understanding and saying, oh, I can tell how different this sound is from this sound, but also to produce it. Once you go to the gym frequently and you do the same exercise, after some time, you already know how to do the movement and it's more natural to you. Okay? And the same way with A, the nasal A, you can do the same with the other nasal sounds. So the most important thing in this technique is to first exaggerate the sound, to realize where is it produced, and then you need to practice regularly to make that sound. This is the only way for your muscle to learn and remember how to move, how to perform, to produce this specific sound. Okay? And it's like, as I said, it's like going to the gym until your muscle improves and gets stronger. All right? We have but we also have the other nasal sounds. Ein, in, and the combinations of vowels, in this case nasal vowels, and in Portuguese we call this combination of vowels ditongos. For example, So the goal here, you do exactly the same exercise for all these nasal sounds. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to give you more examples of this technique and with other difficult sounds. For example, the sound N and the sound L. because the basic is this: we exaggerate the sound. We try to find, okay, this is the sound in this language, but what's the sound behind? What is the basic sound? For example, for nasal sounds, the sound, and if we're not thinking about the language, just the sound itself, it's And I can tell you right now that for the sound l, the basic sound is the sound that you make when you feel disgusted by something. If, for example, if you see something that is very dirty, something that you really don't like, you feel disgusted, you do like bleh, bleh. This is the sound for the l, the basic sound. Of course, we adapt it to the language, but that's the sound. L. So let me know in the comments if you would like me to do a video explaining in detail about L and how you can train your muscles, your cheeks, your lips, your tongue to produce this sound L. And of course, if you would like to know how to do the same with other sounds, let me know in the comments, because I will do a video about it. Okay? So remember, what's the basic sound? Regardless the language, we're not talking about language. The sound okay. And now, once you understand the okay, let's make it part of the language. In this case, European Portuguese, with the vowels. I'm saying the vowels because for nasal sounds, it's just the vowels a, e, I, o, u that we change to an, in, on, Alright? I will leave here another video that I talk about pronunciation, always about the nasal sounds and the l and other sounds that are usually tricky for people who are learning Portuguese as a foreign language. Okay? Let me know what you think about this video in the comments, and make sure that you subscribe so you receive the next videos about European Portuguese and how you can have the best life possible in Portugal with Portuguese. My name is Sara. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Ciao, ciao.